Hello and welcome back to Limitless, the podcast that is making the impossible possible. In today's episode, I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about harnessing your natural energy rhythms, because we often spend so much time forcing ourselves into boxes that don't fit us. It makes us drained, lack energy, and can really test our mental health. Let's see what can happen when you work with your brain rather than against it. I often have lots of ideas in the middle of the night. If I wake up or stir, particularly if I've got something exciting or scary going on in my life, my brain will often fire off with a load of different thoughts, some of them fairly mundane, and some of them fantastical. If I'm going through a time where I'm feeling anxious or worried, these thoughts might be quite negative, conjuring up all the ways things are going to go wrong the next day, or playing over a bad experience, or running through the overwhelming list of things I need to do in my head. That's a common one. If I'm going through an excited or creative time, I might come up with all sorts of ideas. Sometimes just thoughts or possibilities. Sometimes snippets of music or artwork or writing. My brain utilises its sleepy creative state and gives me lots of interesting stuff to ponder. Sometimes I try to fight this thought stream and get back off to sleep. It might work, but quite often it really doesn't, and I know that if I try to fight it, to lay there obsessing about how tired I'm going to be the next day, or how much of a pain in the arse this is, it won't get better, and I'll just go to sleep cross or possibly not sleep at all. Sometimes the best thing is to harness this creative power and make the most of it. This may mean I write down a load of notes about ideas going on in my head, which may or may not ever get used. Sometimes I play or write down music. I've been known to draw and paint. If my thoughts are in more of a negative spiral, journaling might help to get my thinking out, or writing down a big old list of all the things that are overwhelming me. One thing I've learnt though is that taking action in the middle of the night is rarely a good idea. It may feel compelling, but your brain is currently in creative mode, coming up with all sorts of ideas from the depths of the subconscious, which may or may not pass the logic filter when you look over it again in the morning. The reason your brain is more creative when it's sleepy is that the access to the prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain, becomes inhibited when you're tired. So your brain can be free to explore more unusual or disparate ideas in the subconscious. This can play out in a positive way if we harness it, meaning we can get some really good new ideas for creative projects or brainstorming. But it can also mean we're less good at making decisions, having a useful conversation, or handling our emotions. There's nothing wrong with this, as long as we know and we take account of it. It's just as useful to work with your brain energy in the daytime as well. I find there are certain points in the day when my brain works differently. The mornings tend to be a great time for me to get down to some structured tasks, whereas after lunch I'm better at things that are a bit more creative, more contemplative or discursive. I prefer to have my mornings planned out, but my afternoons a bit more free, so I can respond to wherever my brain wants to take me. This happens throughout a month too. There are times when I feel like I can cram more structure into my days, where having lots to keep me motivated and lots of plans feels energy-giving, and other times when this is draining and I need more flexibility and freedom. Across a year, I also notice these changes, which are often closely tied to the seasons. A summer morning might involve a walk or a wild swim, and I may generally have more energy for things, whereas in winter I go into slight hibernation, need to stay in more and drink a lot more hot chocolate in front of the fire. Every brain has a natural energy rhythm. Whilst we can be super productive all day, all month, or all year, this is only achieved by structuring our lives with as little force as we can manage. Rather than pushing yourself through every day, forcing your brain to be on at times when it just wants to relax, imagine a life where you felt like everything came easier and was more predictable. As a society, I think we've lost touch with what our natural rhythms look like, at a detriment to our mental and physical health. Instead of thinking that you just can't do that tough task that you're trying to tackle after lunch, move it to the next morning when it will be infinitely easier. Don't start a new exercise regime when you know you're just hitting that point in the month where your energy levels are really low. Wait for 2 weeks. And be okay with hibernating or going a bit insular for a while at certain times when you know you don't have the brain juice to keep having conversations. I don't know exactly what causes all these rhythms, but I reckon it's a combination of nature, like the seasons and when the sun's up, hormones and habit. Your natural rhythms might not suit your lifestyle as you're leading it right now, and maybe you don't want to overhaul your life overnight, but perhaps a few tweaks here and there might make the world of difference. Switch your boring, mundane house tasks to the morning when you're in that brain space. Delay that social gathering a week to fit in with your monthly cycle. Let your family know you'll be visiting them less in the winter when you're hibernating. And listen. Listen to your body and work out where you may need to change the amount or the type of work you're trying to do. This isn't always doing less either. Bringing more structure into certain times of day can be uplifting and freeing. And remember, energy levels can change daily, so listen each morning and work out what it is you need that day. Stop fighting with your own brain. Your task for the day is to notice your rhythms. Notice tomorrow. When is your brain most alert? When does it take a little creative break and not want to focus or clear structured tasks anymore? When are to-do lists easier? What does it do when you start to get tired at the end of the day? When do you tend to get more random ideas? You may have to take a few days or weeks to start to see when your brain has different kinds of energy, especially if you're currently having to force it into a mould for work or to structure around others. If you're a woman, I would highly recommend researching into the energy levels of different parts of your monthly cycle. It honestly completely revolutionised my life because I stopped getting so frustrated about the times when I had less energy and started seeing it as a natural phenomenon rather than me losing my motivation and feeling like it would last forever. I knew the energy would come back. When we start to notice these rhythms, we remember that we're not machines. We do not work at a consistent level all the time, and no one should ever expect us to. But when we know our own rhythms, we can subtly change the flow of our lives to fit around what works for us, and naturally become more productive, more creative, and kinder to ourselves. Thank you for listening in to another episode of the Limitless Podcast. I would genuinely love to hear about how your rhythms affect your days, particularly if you feel you've been fighting them for a long time. Send me a message through any of the channels in the description. I'd love to hear from you. Look after yourselves, my friends, and I hope you have a lovely, rhythm-filled week.